What's happening, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, and it's back, your weekly advanced look at Marvel graphic novels coming out, well, this week. So, stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. Before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. These books are due out in the direct market and book market on March 21st or 22nd, depending on where you get your books. Now, of course, we also have Savage Avengers Omnibus and Squirrel Girl coming out this week, but this is where I focus on the Epic collections, the trade paperbacks, and of course, the Marvel Masterworks. Alright. So we've got some trade paperbacks of ongoing series and a mini-series, a complete collection, even though it's not called a complete collection, a couple of epics, one being a reprint, and the final Marvel Masterworks for Dazzler. As always, I leave timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around and pick and choose which books you want to look at, or in case you don't want any kind of spoilers. So, let's go ahead and kick it off with Spider-Punk Battle of the Band. Alright, so the very first book we're going to be looking at is Spider-Punk Battle of the Band. Now, this was originally solicited as Spider-Punk Band, what was it, Battle? No, maybe it was Band in DC, something like that. But the title has officially changed to Battle of the Band. So this does feature Earth 138 Spider-Punk, and his real name is Hobie Brown. And he lives in this world where everything is punk. It's based on punk music and just that punk look. And I mean everything, including other of Earth 138 superheroes like Captain America, or later on you'll see Ironheart, even though they all have a little bit of a change in their names, of course. Now, is it still Steve Rogers as Captain America? Things are a little bit different. Like this one, first issue right here, they're fighting Kraven. He is a lot more extreme than the Kraven from the 616 universe. In the second issue, we see the appearance of this world's Taskmaster. Now, he's been sent here under the command of somebody else. Now, this is a character that appeared in Spider-Verse, and this is the first miniseries featuring this particular character. This book right here retails for $15.99, and it collects Spider-Punk 1 through 5. It's a series that was coming out, I believe, in 2022, and it collects all 5 issues of the miniseries. It has 120 pages, and this is what the artwork looks like. Justin Mason is the main artist on this, and Cody Ziegler is the writer on this book. And I forgot to mention this. I believe that's an Olivia Coipel cover right there. And seriously, the main premise of this book is just how these kids, these punk kids that are also superheroes, are surviving in this world. Now, his main arch nemesis is gone during this particular time. So this is how they're still fighting other supervillains and then teaming up with new heroes, like Daredevil shows up through here, looking a lot more punkish than the Daredevil from the 616 universe. Like I said, it's a couple of twists and turns. Let's look at the extras. So we do have some variant covers back here. And then character and vehicle designs. That's right, the Spider Van makes an appearance here. There's a couple of other variant covers that are in between issues, but that one has a spoiler return of a character, or a reveal of a character I didn't want to get into in case people are curious about this book. But this is Spider-Punk Battle of the Band. Moon Knight, Volume 3, Halfway to Sanity. So continuing Jed MacKay's run on Moon Knight, Federico Sabatini and Alessandro Cappuccio are still the main artists on this book. Still love that cover there by Steve McNiven. Wish I had seen some inside or internal artwork by him. This and Spider-Punk, by the way, printed in the US. It seems like more and more of the smaller trades are beginning printed in the US, which usually means thicker paper. Is a different glossy paper than the Canadian printer, and this has a flat finish to it instead of a glossy finish to it. This book retails for $24.99, and it has 168 pages because this collects Moon Knight, the 2021 series, 13 through 18, plus the Moon Knight annual. So I'm sure you could probably tell, this is the return of a particular character that is a werewolf. So yes, it's interesting to see Jack come back into the series now, because Moon Knight has changed a lot since they first met. Of course, Moon Knight making his first appearance in issues of Werewolf by Night. In here, Jack Russell comes back, but he's not alone. He's not the only werewolf that comes back. So this all is still taking place during the Midnight Mission, and you have Mr. Knight playing a big role in this, Moon Knight, but by now you start seeing the return of his other personalities, like Jake and Steven. So they are making a comeback, as you didn't really see a lot of them play a big role in the first book. And here you start seeing how they're playing a big role. Now, speaking of big role, there was another character that was introduced through the pages of Max Bemis' run on Moon Knight, and that run has been collected in trade paperback. Now, she plays a bigger role in this, especially with the werewolf storyline, and that is, of course, Beatrice. And I love the way that she handles Jack compared to the way that other superheroes. Not that she is one, because she's a kid, right? Um, and she was a character, like I said, that was introduced through the pages of Max Bemis' run on Moon Knight, but plays such a big, important part in Moon Knight's life now. She's not the only character that plays an important part. We also have some returning characters like Marlene, and a surprise few other characters besides Marlene and Jack that show up. Let's look at the extras here. So you have a Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night timeline here, showing how these characters' paths have crossed in the past, and you have some variant covers, including one by the Clan Shelby with this guy right here. Now, Miracle Man was just on variant covers everywhere. It's not like he actually appeared inside of the books. And some more variant covers, including that one right there by Kyle Hotz featuring Tigra and Moon Knight. But this is volume 3 of this new Jed MacKay series, and he has been kicking ass on the series. I've been enjoying the series. And even with some of the downers in this volume, it's still a solid read. The New Mutants, volume 4, but not to be confused because we've already had sort of a volume 4 with New Mutants during this era. But this is the final issue of Vida Ayala. I didn't know that she was leaving the book, and now we have a couple of other writers coming in here. This book has issues 29 through 33 in here, including one issue that made me just feel like that old. Oh my gosh. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the premise of this one here starts off with both Gabby and Karma. They've gone missing, and now it's up to the Ken and James Proudstar, otherwise known as Warpath and Akihito, go after them because they feel like they failed their siblings or their family in the past. Now they feel like they need to go and make up for the things that they have failed. So it's both of them teaming up together. And it's an interesting storyline. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention is that is Danny Lord that writes that particular issue. And then Vida Ayala writes issue number 30, which I'll talk about here more in a second. But then we have a new writer, Charlie Jane Anders. And Alberto Albuquerque's doing the art there. So Alyssa Wong actually helps out Vida Ayala with the Deadpool issue. And I haven't read Deadpool yet by Alyssa Wong, but I've been told by a lot of my subscribers that has been a phenomenally funny book. And I guess I'll have to wait to get it in trade paperback. The first trade is not available yet. But Deadpool does make an appearance here. It's a nice little letter right there from Gabby to the Ken, or Akihito. Alright, so here we go. Issue number 30 of New Mutants, or chapter 16 in this new volume 4. Oh boy, this gets confusing. So here's a letter from Vida Ayala talking about 40 years of New Mutants and how much of an impact, of course, they've had on her writing, because she's been writing New Mutants for a while now. I guess it's been about 2 years. It was after Hickman left the book. But this is an interesting celebration. It's kind of a flashback. It keeps going back and forth through different times in the New Mutants' life, from the very beginning to when Kitty Pryde was kind of forced to be in there, to the days of sort of when the New Mutants were becoming X-Force. So I really like this. This goes back through so many different phases of the New Mutants and what makes them the New Mutants, what makes them stand out, what makes them so different than X-Men, what makes them not the X-Babies, as some people would call them. But it was just a nice it was a nice reminder of what makes New Mutants special. This is really cool too. Hey, what makes the Merry Band so special? This is from the different writers throughout here, talking about the first issues that they picked up. Jonathan Hickman talking about how old he was for the first time he ever picked up the first issue of New Mutants. And then some of the people here with their first issue, some of these creators, making me feel old because I was like, okay, yeah. They're talking about their childhood when it was me as an adult out there in the world. It's kind of crazy to go back and think about that time. But then we have a brand new era of New Mutants. And here, let me just showcase a little bit of the artwork of what this looks like. And it looks like we're focusing on newer type of characters, too. It's not just the main core team that we've seen for the last, well, goodness, I guess almost 30 issues or so up until the 40th anniversary issue. But we get a mixed match of new characters and older characters as the return of one villain from Grant Morrison's run, Sublime. And then, of course, you also have to have some classic New Mutant characters pop up in here. This book has 168 pages, retailing for $19.99. Let's look at the back here for some extras. So the extras are where you're going to get the actual textless covers and all the variants. That is Dan Panosian, but they credited Rod Reyes. I do think that's a mistake. You have some design variants. Bill Sienkiewicz still drawing New Mutants. He forever changed New Mutants. There's a Rob Liefeld variant right there, kind of a take on his issue 98 of New Mutants. And some more variants. And that is New Mutants, Volume 4, Guardians of the Galaxy by Donny Cates. Now, this is a book that has come out previously in oversized hardcover. It was not part of the Cosmic Marvel Universe by Donny Cates, so keep that in mind. It's only available in oversized hardcover format, and now it's come out in this semi-complete collection. They're not called complete collections anymore. They're just called Guardians of the Galaxy by Donny Cates. However, it's not the only Guardians in that big, thick style that's coming out. That's creator-centric. This one here is Guardians of the Galaxy by Al Ewing. This will be coming up sometime, I think, in April, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the one that we're going to be focusing on today, though. So, Guardians of the Galaxy by Donny Cates. This book collects Guardians of the Galaxy 1 through 12, the 2019 series, and the annual from that series. So you have Donny Cates, Jeff Shaw is the main artist on here, with a couple of other artists that help him out throughout the book. And this book has 328 pages and retails for $39.99. Now, I will say, like, the back, the covers, I mean, everything just kind of spoils what's happening in this particular book. So there's the death of a big major character that happened before this. That actually happened in the pages of Infinity Wars. During Jerry Duggan's run on Guardians of the Galaxy, there was an Infinity Wars storyline. Not to be confused with Infinity War. I know it's kind of ridiculous when they use the same type of names, but I did want to make people aware that there is the death of a major character. They are killed off by somebody, and this is the funeral and the reading of the will. And of course, the reading of the will of this particular character is a huge trap that opens up like a vortex that sucks in so many of these characters and displaces them through space, maybe time. You can find out for yourself exactly what that is when you read things like Silver Surfer Black or the Thor series that Donny Cates was writing. So the rest of the Guardians, or the Guardians that are left, are of course Peter Quill, Star-Lord, and Groot. And they are left to kind of form a new team of Guardians of the Galaxy. So there's also a Dark Guardians team that is being formed as well. That they don't know about it yet. And there's a little bit of the return of the Black Order in here. There's the return of the Universal Church of Truth. And a couple of other surprises that you won't see coming. This book really benefits from reading a lot more Guardians of the Galaxy than just this run. Not so much so like the original Guardians of the Galaxy or even the Jim Valentino era from the 90s, but at least the DNA era, the modern cosmic era, and then after that with Jerry Duggan and Bendis's Guardians of the Galaxy. You would get so much more out of this if you had read those, because a lot of characters make a surprising return through here. There's a lot of revelations that come out in this that tie back to some of the stuff that Jerry Duggan was doing. So that's something that I think I recommended that whenever I did my overview of the oversized hardcover. But this is everything that Donny Cates wrote as far as the Guardians of the Galaxy. I love that Gundam suit that Rocket gets to pilot. So there isn't really anything after this. Of course, the story with the cosmic stuff continues over into his Thor and the Hulk book and Venom, of course. But unfortunately, he left Thor and Hulk, so I don't know if he'll ever come back to kind of wrap up or tie up those loose ends. I don't know at this time. Let's look at the extras. Alright, so we have some extras, including this variant right here by Jeff Shaw and Dean White, just showcasing some of the possible members of the new Guardians of the Galaxy, and some of these characters did end up joining the team. Skipping some pages because it showcases a couple of spoilers, but here are some I can actually show that really have very little to do with this book. And this right here is the Immortal variants. There's one by Dave Johnson and then Tom Rainey. But that is Guardians of the Galaxy, who will guard the galaxy. Now let's check out these spines. Now comes that part of the video where we look at all the spines of the books coming out this week, and also a nice reminder to smash that like button and ring that bell for notifications, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We do put out videos every day. Alright, let's continue this journey. Doctor Strange, Epic Collection, Triumph and Torment. This is the latest printing. This book has actually been previously printed before, about 3 years ago when I did the overview of this book that Marvel sent my way. And now we are coming up to a new printing of this. So the original printing, was this one that was printed? I think it was printed in Canada. I don't think it was one that was the LSC Communications, and then this is the Salisco printer. Okay, so this is LSC Communications. This is one that was printed in America. And the back here, about the same as far as the colors. A little bit darker in the new printing. Volume 8, 1988 to 1990. Of course, the price now is one thing to keep in mind, is $44.99. The original printing being $39.99. And the content being the same. We'll do a little bit of a comparison as far as the inside, but I can't imagine there being anything. There was one printing error in this one. I don't think anybody else cared or caught it, but I'll look at it in this book to see if it's still there. So this does collect the new era of Doctor Strange. After Strange Tells, he was sharing that comic with Cloak and Dagger. He got his own ongoing again. So I think this is like the third ongoing series with Dr. Stephen Strange. And that's what's collected in here, issues 1 through 13. So the first 13 issues. The first 4 being written by Peter B. Gillis and Richard Case. And they kind of work a little bit as to wrapping up some of the loose ends from Strange Tales. He's got an eye patch. Well, something happened to him in those particular stories where kind of lost an eye. But that's okay. That's momentary. This is going to go away eventually. I'm sure you probably know by the end of this book he has both eyes. So this collects the first 13 issues of that. And the best thing about this book, at least to me, is the collection of the actual Marvel graphic novel, Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment. What's crazy is that that's also collected in the other epic that's coming out today. So it's like, if you're not getting this and you're getting the Fantastic Four, you're still good, because that collects that story. And that's a bit of a wild ride of an epic collection I can't wait to talk about. Alright, so the first 4 issues of Doctor Strange, Peter Gillis, Richard Case, wrapping up some loose ends. This starts off as like a 2-parter that continues the plot elements, like I said, from Strange Tales, and kind of wrapping up that stuff. And it's pretty much when Dormammu has taken over his body, Doctor Strange has to get his body back. He becomes a little bit of a rat. Now, the next story arc, the next 2 issues, are the return of some familiar characters like Andromeda, Manslaughter, and Valkyrie. Characters that were members of the Defenders. And they were gone for a while because of something that happens in Secret Wars 2. But now they are back. And how are they back? Well, you can read the story. Here's where you see Doctor Strange getting a little bit darker and darker. Like learning more about the dark arts and focusing more on that. But let's talk about this right here. So this is the beginning of Roy Thomas and his wife Dan Thomas writing these stories, and Butch guys, or Jackson guys, drawing these issues. Not two different people, not brothers, same person. And you can tell when Butch guys was on a book, because his men and his ladies were just, whoa, super sexy. Like, there's an Enchantress appears through here like that. Look, those legs, my goodness. Enchantress appears through here, and I would have been like, yeah, whatever. I am totally falling under your spell. When she's trying to seduce Doctor Strange, I believe this is the issue with the caterpillar, that after this is when you might see Doctor Strange with a couple of eyes. And this is the fight between Mephisto and another big demon. This is a really interesting story. I never go back to my old videos, so I don't know if I actually talked about these things like this, or if I just went, good story, back, better story, bye. I don't remember. I can't imagine me doing that. I like to talk a lot. All right, but this is a really interesting issue because it reads more like an interview. It's your it's somebody in Doctor Strange's past that, what is her name? Is it Morgana? I think Morgana Blessing. She's writing a, an article about Doctor Strange and the many misadventures that he's had. And of course, she's a former lover, so she has to keep it professional. So it's become like this tabloid magazine. There it is, Morgana Blessing. So it just doesn't just talk about him, it talks about some of his enemies too, like Eternity right there. So be prepared to do a lot of reading right there. And this is also when Roy Thomas started introducing these backup stories. There's the fight with Morbius, and that leads into the Acts of Vengeance. Backup stories to kind of flesh out a lot of the Book of Bashanti stuff, or just some of these characters. This is the fight with the Hobgoblin. But the next one features the Executioner and the Enchantress. Whoa, even the cover, I remember. Yeah, man. Just, whoa. And Clea's like, what are you doing with my man? And Clea looking all kinds of fine, too. This, I don't know what it was about his artwork. I just was a big fan. Archon shows up here in this big Acts of Vengeance story. And then, of course, the big one here. The Triumph and Torment. If you've been following my channel, you know this is one of my favorite, not just Doctor Strange stories, but also Doctor Doom stories. It's Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom going to hell to try to retrieve the soul of Doctor Doom's mother. It is a powerful story by Roger Stern, and the artwork here is by Mike Mignola. Before Hellboy, before the world of BPRD, and him just doing his own thing, he was doing this, and it is worth the price of admission if you've never read that story. And if you're at all remotely interested in Doctor Strange, it's a weird jumping on point because it's like the tail end of some stories that he was wrapping up, but by the time you get to Roy Thomas's arc, it does become a pretty good jumping on point. The book retails for $44.99 and again has 488 pages, the same as this one. I wanted to do a quick little comparison with the internal colors. Mainly, let's look at the cover here. Yeah, so the colors, much like the cover, look a little bit darker. See if it also affects the internal color. Yeah, he's just a little bit redder, and the yellows are a little bit darker there, as well as the greens. So, you know, it usually is the different inks they're using, or sometimes it's the different paper stock. And the paper stock actually feels a little bit thicker than this one here. Just a little bit thicker in the new printing. But I just wanted to do that. Oh, forgot one thing. Yeah, I said that there was an error. Okay, so the error that I don't think anybody cared about is in this extras back here. And I don't even know if it was an error or if they actually did this. So they started printing these right here. It was like a preview of the next cover, like next issue. This is what it was. But they printed this one here twice. And I don't know why. I think, like I said, it's a mistake. But let's see if they did it again in the new printing. Yes, it's also in the new printing. Okay. So yes, there are extras in the back, including the different covers of Triumph and Torment with the new colors. I never owned the original Triumph and Torment, so apparently underneath the dust jacket, there was this symbol right here That is beautiful. So the mix of Butch Geiss's super sexy women and super sexy men, and throw in Triumph and Torment, this book gets the Near Mint Condition seal of approval this week. It is so good. Fantastic Four. This is The Dream is Dead Epic Collection, Volume 19, 1988 to 1989. And this collects Fantastic Four 321 to 333, Annual 22, and Marvel graphic novel Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment. They can't get enough of it. You should neither. This book has 464 pages, and it retails for $44.99. Written by Steve Englehart, Roy Thomas, and Roger Stern, writing some of the annual stuff, as well as Mark Grunwald and Gregory Wright. Ron Lim doing one fill-in issue, and then some of the annual. Keith Poehler being the main artist, as well as Rich Buckler, and of course Mike Mignola doing the art in Triumph and Torment. Here's something to note. John Harkness, Steve Englehart. All right. So when you're a kid, you're buying comic books, and you buy back issues, and you start seeing a difference in writers. You grow up in comics. My life is comics. I always make that comment, my life in comics, how where I was at a certain point in my life. Fantastic Four I really didn't get into until Walter Simonson's run, and then I started getting huge into John Byrne's run, like getting back issues of those stories. This particular era is after the John Byrne era and before the Walter Simonson era, and I always found Steve Englehart's era to be really weird. And then this other guy named John Harkness came in and wrote the most obscure stories of the Fantastic Four that I had read in a long time. It didn't make any sense to me. And when you read them, because I don't want to spoil what exactly I'm talking about, when you read them, you'll see what I mean. It's kind of like a long what if. What if this had happened? What if this fantastic group of Fantastic Four had done this instead of this? It's just a really weird way of writing Fantastic Four. What I didn't know until much later, probably in my 20s or 30s when I found out about this, is that John Harkness is Steve Englehart. He just didn't want his name on the book because he was really disappointed with the stories. He wanted to be off of the book because he came in during the tail end of Jim Shooter's era as editor-in-chief. And then when Tom DeFalco took over as editor-in-chief, he was not happy with the way that he wanted the book to go. He wanted to bring back the classic characters. He wanted to bring back the characters that Steve Englehart kind of got rid of because he wanted the other characters to grow and bring in new characters to the Fantastic Four. There's Sharon Ventura right there from the pages of The Thing fighting She-Hulk, and then you have the Return of Graviton. So the issues in here written by John Harkness are actually Steve Englehart's issues. He was just so just disappointed with the direction they wanted to go that he was like, you know what? Take my name off the book. It's not the first time we've seen that name being used, too. I think he did the same thing over at DC Comics. But this sort of ended his run at Marvel. He was kind of heartbroken about taking a step back and letting editorial just kind of run with what they wanted to on Fantastic Four. They wanted to bring back the core characters and bring back the original family. And the ending of John Harkness's run is so weird. Like, really weird. Like, meta. Even as a kid, I remember reading these back, or when I had back issues of these, I thought, why would he write that in there? That is so strange. And you'll see what I mean. I know I'm speaking in code, but I don't want to spoil these stories for anybody. I kind of just wanted to share the behind the scenes as to what was happening. As a matter of fact, I think this is his final issue as Steve Englehart when the Silver Surfer gets involved. And he was going to write the issue of Mantis and Kang into a Silver Surfer story, but he was also out of that. So with the return of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman is when you get John Harkness writing these stories. And it is the return of a new Frightful Four. The Mole Man comes back, Dr. Doom comes back, and it's just a really interesting time for the Fantastic Four. I will just leave it at that. I'm mainly focusing on the artwork here. Boy, it's hard to talk about that in code. Ultron makes an appearance, and then, like I said, there's a really weird ending to all of this, and then you get a fresh new start with the next issue, with the next epic, and that's of course Walter Simonson's run, and that can be found in the epic Into the Time Stream, which leads into the new Fantastic Four. All right, let's look at the annual. So the annual is actually a wrap-up of the Atlantis Attack stories. It also features all the backup stories. in there, like by Mark Bagley. There we go. And then you get Triumph and Torment. And in case you didn't watch the Doctor Strange part of this video, yes, Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom, travel to hell, get Doctor Doom's mother's soul back from hell. That's it. Beautiful artwork by, of course, Mike Mignola, written by Roger Stern. Let's look at the extras. You know, that would be a really good old reader, new reader, is Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom, Triumph, and Torment. Some Marvel Age stuff, Fran Hembeck, and some pinups, or Marvel Fanfare pinups. Whoa, that's a nice one. Butch Geist, man, you can always tell his ladies and his good-looking dudes. That's Arthur Adam piece right there. Petra Scatesi doing the colors on that. She's the one that kind of wrapped up Dazzler. She was also one of Michael Higgins' favorite colorist. And there's the underneath the dust jacket. And this is stuff from the annual. And of course, I forgot to mention the trade paperback. Is that Mike Mayhew? Yes, Mike Mayhew. This book has 464 pages, retails for $44.99, and it's one of those books that it's a gap filler like you need, right? Because this is volume 19, and we've had volume 18 and 20 and 21. And actually, I want to say this actually gives you like a consecutive run of the Fantastic Four. That I think there's like 7 volumes maybe of the Fantastic Four now that are all together. But yes, that is The Dream is Dead. Last but certainly not least, Marvel Masterworks Dazzler Volume 4. This is it. This is the finale. Here, let's look at it underneath the dust jacket. You have this faux leather look, which you've seen in the Marvel Masterworks and the old school Omnis. But most importantly, I want to say, I believe his username is Memphis Flash. So he told me what this glossy border, it actually has a name, the glossy border on the cover is called Spot Varnish. It's like a 5th color, is what he compared it to. I said it was embossed because it does kind of feel like it is. But he said it's called a Spot Varnish. So thank you so much. Memphis Flash is what the gentleman's name is. He's one of my viewers. Because I was wondering what this... I know there's a lot of book terminology that is out there. And a lot of book collectors that actually know these terminologies. Alright, you have a marble look here to the end sheets, which is a very Marvel Masterworks thing to do. And presents Dazzler Volume 4. And look at the creators. Archie Goodwin, Paul Chadwick, Anna Sanity, Don Perlin. My goodness. So here we have the credits. Here's all the creators, including the inkers for each issue, the letters, the colorists for each issue, and the editors at the time. And then the color and art restoration down here. And you have this piece with Chase. I love that character. Everybody's like, what? Who the hell's Chase? The reason I love him is I'll tell here in a little bit. Marvel Masterworks contents. Here's your introductions by Michael Higgins. And this collects Beauty and the Beast, issues 1 through 4 is how it kicks it off. And Secret Wars number 4, material for Marvel Fanfare number 38. And then the finale of Dazzler. And that is issues 35 through 42. Now, this is an introduction by Michael Higgins talking about the time of working at Marvel Comics, how it felt like a family. And this is something that you see in the bullpen. And this is something that anytime you go to a convention, you see these, I hate to use the term, older creators get together, the editors and the assistant editors, and talk about just the wild things that would happen in the offices. At least to me, it makes me jealous. I wish I was working there at the time. But hearing them tell the stories kind of makes me relive those times with them, if that makes sense. All right, let's get this out of the way. Beauty and the Beast. For the last 35, let's see, how long have I been reading comics? Oh my gosh, almost 40 years I've been reading comics. From time to time, I like to do complete read-throughs. I don't think I'm due for another X-Men read-through for a while. But every time I do an X-Men read-through, I mean X-Men. I mean everything. I go from X-Men, the New Mutants when they're supposed to be read, to X-Factor when they're supposed to be read, to Excalibur, to X-Force when New Mutants became X-Force, and so on, and you get the idea. And I don't know how I keep it together on my head, but I've shared that stuff with you all, like whenever I do when to read these spin-off series reading orders, and I've done an X-Men reading order. I've shared this on my videos before. I'll share it again. There are some books that I do not look forward to rereading, but I don't know. It's like I have to, right? It's like I'm cheating myself if I don't. Uh, I've talked about Fallen Angels being on that list, and I've talked about Beauty and the Beast being on that list. Now, this is no offense to Anna Senti. I think she's a phenomenal creator. If not for her, we wouldn't have Longshot, which is one of my favorite characters in the X-Men. I think I'm one of the few that actually likes that character. And we wouldn't have her phenomenal run on Daredevil. But boy, every time I have to read Beauty and the Beast, it's like I have to push myself. It's interesting, though, to go back and reread it. I hadn't read this in a couple of years, and I went back and read it with, like, clean slate, like, okay, let's read it. I I don't think I ever made the connection, but the characters of like Max and a couple of these characters end up showing up in the pages of New Mutants. So this is all written by Anna Senti. Don Perlin is the artist on this, or the writer on this. Doctor Doom does play a role in here, but there's a couple of characters that do show up through here that will show back up in the pages of New Mutants, and of course that's after Dazzler ends. But this is one of the earliest Anna Senti's. I think this might be the first thing she wrote. So it's all about Beast going out to Florida, finding Dazzler. She's trying to escape. She's kind of losing control of her powers. They kind of have a thing. Doctor Doom is involved in a really weird off-panel way and then comes into the story. But yeah, that's what that particular miniseries is. And then we move on to the new era of what will be Dazzler. So this is what Michael Higgins was talking about at the beginning of his book. And actually, in this collection has my very first issue of Dazzler that I got. You can probably guess what that is because, well, it features a couple of characters that you may be familiar with if you've been reading X-Men. Whoa. All right, where the hell was I? Oh, yes. So, we're stepping away out of the disco era, which is what Dazzler was known for. She was known for being that dancer and roller skating and disco balls, as a cover by John Byrne. So how are they going to go into this new era when it's like Cyndi Lauper and Madonna just dominating the charts? So they could not think of anybody to write the stories for this particular era until Michael Higgins gave the idea of like, why don't we let somebody like Archie Goodwin do it? There was a couple film writers through here. Tom Morgan, I believe this might be the first thing that Tom Morgan wrote or drew in this particular issue. But it's in the next issue, right here, issue number 38, that it's my first issue of Dazzler. Yes, I got it because of Wolverine and Colossus. That things change, including the logo and her costume, and things change for her. She's stepping more into the 80s spotlight. So this also introduces us to this character right here, Chase, who I was just talking about. And the reason I like Chase so much is because he's the character I talked about in the Marvel Masterworks review of X-Men, Uncanny X-Men Volume 15 in issue 228. He's the character that's has his gun and his dog, and he's like, don't you talk about my friends like that when people at the bar are talking about mutants, or like they're saying like good riddance because of the things that happen in Fall of the Mutants. But this is where he makes his first appearance. And Archie Goodwin steps in as the writer, which is crazy because Archie at the time was focusing on the epic line, not these epics, not epics like this, but the actual Marvel epic line, which was kind of Marvel's answer to those adult magazines like Heavy Metal, or mature magazines. I don't want to say it was mainly for adults. Secret Wars is in here because, well, this is when the Beyonder decides to come to Earth to try to see what humanity is, and one of the things he tries to do is he tries to sweep Allison Blair off her feet. And, yeah, takes her from Chase after they were together for a while. But this wraps up the entirety of Dazzler. This is it. And I know a lot of people are like, this would make a really good omnibus because this is only 42 issues. Throw in the Beauty and the Beast miniseries, the graphic novel Dazzler the movie, and then, of course, the material from the Marvel Fanfare book, which, here, let's look at that. And this is the duet right here, and it features Rogue. So yes, during this time, it's also interesting to see when the X-Men took an interest in the character of Dazzler and how they eventually ask her to join the X-Men. And at first she refuses them, and of course later on we know that she ended up joining them. Here is a house ad. I remember seeing that one in comic book pages. A spotlight in Marvel Age. Another house ad, and this house ad, yes, I remember that one. That is a beautiful piece by Bill Sienkiewicz. And here's the original cover, because we know that Bill Sienkiewicz painted these covers. The original art there by John Byrne. The pin-up, and then the biographies. And sadly, some of these people are no longer with us, including the legendary Archie Goodwin. Cancer took him way too early in life. Frank Springer's been gone for a while now. But it's really cool to see a lot of the people that don't get that much of a spotlight get a little bit of a bio back here. This book has 344 pages and retails for $75. And if you like Beauty and the Beast, more power to you. That was just my opinion. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the contents and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below if you're picking any of these up, if you have any more questions, and which ones you're hoping gets some kind of omnibus treatment. I know Doctor Strange, for the most part, has been collected in omnibus format, and then Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, in the oversized hardcover format. But what about Dazzler, or the Jed MacKay run on Moon Knight, or, of course, The Mutants? The Mutants is one of those rare books that hasn't been collected in OHC yet for that Dawn of X, Reign of X, and now Trials of X era. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any more questions, thoughts, comments, whatever it is. That's it, everyone. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.